Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a comprehensive guide on Prism. This is probably slightly late from its release date, but I think it is a great time to kind of talk about it with the context of Shiranui and the Stride deck sets out at the moment. So if you guys haven't already decided on a deck for Springfest and your team composition, Prism is definitely a deck to consider. If you guys need any coaching, my link is in the bottom right hand corner for my Metafy. Feel free to book a session and we can get started. If you guys haven't already, click that subscribe button for all notifications on this channel. So why is this deck the Shiranui Slayer? And pretty much it is Shiranui's worst matchup because it has essentially ways to bounce a whole board, plays aggro, and essentially stop Shiranui from dominating 2 turns in a row. Pretty much Shiranui not being able to dominate 2 turns in a row means that the offensive power of Shiranui actually dims down. And that is huge because you're no longer, attacking 7 attacks. You're actually only attacking 3 times because all of your grade 2s requires you to dominate a unit for it to restand. But, if you don't dominate, then how are you going to restand, right? So I'll kind of go through this, why this deck is, one of the best decks at the moment. And if you guys have tuned in to the Vanguard World Invitationals hosted by Different Fight, this deck was pretty much played by nearly every single team that, participated. So I think our team, Bearer, played this deck and it was absolutely crazy. And I think this deck is, pretty nuts. Anyhow, enough rambling, I guess. So we're just going to go through the deck real quick and just kind of show you guys, I guess, the common flow of the game and I guess why certain cards are picked in this deck. So we're playing any starter. Any starter in this deck, you can play, ones that play mind games, but this is just there. The grade 1, essentially, when it's rode upon by the grade 2, you can top 7 for a prism, add it to hand. And if you didn't find anything, you can call this card to rear guard, and if you did, you can soul judge 1. So it replaces the soul, gives you +1. Very neat grade 1. And then the grade 2, essentially when it is rode upon by Labrador, choose a card with prism in its card name from your hand, call it and draw 1. Then Labrador, the star of the show essentially, so she has 2 effects. So the act skill, once per turn, Soul Blast, choose one of your rear guards, return it to hand, this unit gains +5. Note that this is not specific to Prism, so if you somehow get a PG or anything generic on your board, you can just bounce it straight away, right? The second effect, Auto Vanguard Circle, when this unit attacks, count +1, choose up to 2 unit cards with Prism in their card name from your hand, call them to open rear guard circle, and if you did, call, draw 1, and if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, this unit gains a crit, and the front row gains +5. So pretty much it attacks for 23 if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, 18 if, your opponent's on grade 2 if you're going first, and just free 5 attacks like it's nothing, right? We play 3 copies of Labrador for Persona Ride, and we play 4 of this grade 2 Petronile, or Petronil. Essentially, it is your prism searches. So when it's placed in rigor, count +1, top 7 for a prism, add it to hand. And if you do not find a prism, you may soul charge 2. So this is like a CB1 emergency soul charge, which is, sometimes it's necessary, but to be honest, with this deck, you actually never run out of soul, and if you do, then you might need to work on the fundamentals of this deck. But yeah, it's just there, just in case, you do a little oopsie and get rid of all your soul. The second effect, at the end of the battle that this unit attacked, if you have a Labrador Vanguard, you may return it back to hand. Really good because, you can commit this super early, and then, attack with this, bounce it back to hand, attack with Celtic, bounce 2 prisms, and then call them. So yeah, it has no drawbacks. The fact that it just, gets called, reusable grade 2 to deck thin, just absolutely amazing card. Then we play one of the, I guess, core components of the deck, and that is Celtic. So essentially it is a 10k shield, and a 15k attacker on place Vanguard, on place Rearguard, or on place a Guardian Circle, as long as you have a Labrador Vanguard. The second effect, at the end of the battle, this unit attacks. If you have a Labrador Vanguard, you can soul blast 1, return this unit to hand, and choose up to one of your Rearguards with Prism, return it to hand. So essentially you want to combo this with late. Late allows you to essentially have your resources open, your counter charging, your soul charging, and then this card just, you know, fuels for that, just keeps bounce, 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 bounce. And you guys can kind of see where this kind of goes to for being the Shiranui Slayer, right? Pretty much bounce all your field and your opponent can't dominate anything. So that's Celtic, probably the most important card of the deck. In my opinion, you can probably get away with not playing a late or not finding a late, but Celtic, if you find it, you keep it in your starting hand, you keep it, all right? Valshablan. So this is probably the best for this deck at the moment. You know, if there's another new grade 2 that comes out, sure. But Valshablan, if you essentially see this in the early game, your hand is pretty fat. If you find this on a Persona Ride turn, your Persona Rides are like pretty fat. Plus 15 to the front row, multi-attack, pretty gross. The third thing is that you can use this effect, come us 1, use Labrador's effect to bounce it again, and then call it and use it again. So that means that you actually get plus 20k on a Persona Ride turn. Absolutely filthy. And sometimes the plus 5k to the front row, stackable, actually wins you the game. So that is 3, I guess, ways you can kind of use this card, and why this card is very valuable in this deck. We play 2 cat. The cat essentially is just 20k shield usually, but if in the case where you need to return 2 ride deck for its rearguard skill, the rearguard skill allows you to choose a card with the same card name as your Vanguard from your soul or drop and put it to hand. Persona Ride Searcher, always good, right? Then the third part of the Prism trio, that is late. So when it's placed on rearguard from hand or guardian circle from hand, if you have a Labrador Vanguard, it gains plus 5k power and 5k shield. So essentially 10k shield, 13k attacker, very, very strong, right? The second effect, when this unit is returned from to hand from rearguard, if you have a Labrador Vanguard, you may soul charge 1, and if you did not counter charge this turn, counter charge 1. So essentially all damage to 9 plans, tell your opponent, screw off, right? Your opponent can't damage deny you. As long as you have this, you're Gucci, right? Labrador will Soul Blast 1, bounce this, and then the Soul Blast gets reimbursed by late Soul Charge skill. So essentially it's a free counter charge. Ridiculous, right? So this, Celtic, and Labrador are your 3 components to making this deck absolutely insane, right? The other card that we do run is this grade 1 Nebarona, and essentially when your unit with Prism in its card name is placed on another rearguard circle in the same column as this unit, i.e. in front of it or behind it, that place unit gains plus 5. So it just bumps up your numbers, you know, on the initial swing, and then the second swing you have this to boost, right? Pretty easy. You can actually substitute out for like other things if you want to, but I feel that if you're substituting for like Yuika, like the soul usage is really high. So I think just having it as a power gainer is always good, right? Next we play 4 Aura. I know this card is really expensive now, but essentially it makes this deck so much more consistent to be able to fight against Shiranui, and it's actually ridiculous. So essentially when the attack this unit boosted hits, you can retire such a deck for 1 order and add it to hand. So you essentially place this behind your Vanguard from the get-go, right? So 8 plus 6 is 14, your opponent can't drop a 15k, and then pretty much if you hit, you search for your Bracing Angel ladder, and that's 2 turns where your opponent literally cannot do anything, which is absolutely nuts. If you go first, it's over, right? You've just bounced everything to hand, Shiranui can't dominate anything. The next turn you use Bracing Angel ladder, Shiranui can't do anything. And that's it, it's over. Like, this is why this deck is a really bad matchup for Shiranui, right? So yep, that's Aura. You play 3 PGs, 1 Elementaria, as essentially every deck does. This deck has the Chalice because Bracing Angel ladder is not in the deck log yet. So when Bracing Angel ladder comes out, it gets taken out for the ladder. But for the meantime, you can run the Chalice because it's essentially another Persona Ride. Persona Ride is actually really important in this deck, surprisingly. So yeah, you know, having Persona Ride, another copy of Persona Ride is always good. Another card that you could I guess, use is Evergreen. So the transfer, free 25k shield, pretty good, right? Otherwise, you can probably bump up Sweet X8 by another, but you know, just having a Regalis piece is good too. We also play one Sweet X Sweet, and the reason for this is that one, it's searchable off Aura, and second, you can top 5 search for a PG, call it out, and then bounce it with Labrador, right? You can find your components, you can find your cats. Like, this card is just so good. Like, you search your deck for anything, and then you bounce it with Labrador. Really, really strong, right? The good thing about Labrador also is that it can return anything. So it can return triggers as well. So if Sweet X Sweet finds a trigger, you know, you're pretty good. The trigger lineup, we play 4 heal, 8 crit, 3 fronts. The fronts is actually really impactful in this deck because, you know, you're 5 attacking, your front 2 rear guys. If you hit a front, like, your opponent just randomly dies, just because of how strong the power is. At the moment, I run 4 vanilla heals, but you can consider running restand heals if you're playing against Varga once it comes out in Divines. If your opponent plays Shiranui and you know they restand, you can also play grade heals if you want. But yeah, this slot is up to determining what your meta is and kind of accommodating for that. This crit is actually pretty useful. Sometimes you do run out of soul and you need it for Celtic, so you can put it behind Celtic, attack for 19 or 29 on Persona Ride, put it into soul first, then use Celtic skill to bounce stuff. Then you can start bouncing Lates can soul charge, and then get your whole engine running again. And then we play one of the blue OT. You can play the lyrical OT if you want. Lyrical OT is fine, but knowing me, I never hit the lyrical OT anyways for it to be super impactful in the early game. So I'd rather, having a blue OT to fetch an extra PG, an extra Persona Ride is just really, really good. And this deck doesn't really need much anyway, so you pretty much, if you hit an OT, like just grabbing back a free PG, a free Persona Ride, that's just much more impactful in my opinion for you to, go from point A to point B, right? And sometimes, an extra Persona Ride just gets you over the hump, and that's it, right? That's what you want. Alternatively, you can play the lyrical OT, that is completely fine. Some alternatives for this deck, you can also run the order. I think it's like something like Canvas 1, give your Vanguard the skill, all your Regards gain +5. So it bumps up the numbers a little bit more. If you can't afford Valshablon, try to find alternative grade 2s. It's actually pretty hard to be able to find many replacements for this card just because of how useful this card is. You can probably find, I guess searches maybe, but yeah, it's just really hard to be able to find a replacement for this. Actually, anything that is like on place gains +5 is actually really good, right? Just 15k attacker, because if you play that and then you have like Yuika, then sure, you can start bouncing stuff. But then the soul usage, again, like I said, will be, pretty excessive. Like I said before, you can swap this out for like Yuika if you want. But to be honest, I think the deck as it is really good, and it's cheap, right? Why invest in like $25 Yuikas when you really don't need to? Just play this card, it's pretty good. Actually, overall, this deck is actually pretty cheap, except for probably the Valshablon. So this deck, if you're picking it up for Springfest, it's a really good investment at the moment, right? So yeah, that is the Prism deck. So the deck code is CZPX. I will add it into the description below if you guys are interested. So we're just going to go through a simulation on CFA, just kind of seeing how this deck functions and kind of your mulligan targets and whatnot. Yes, I'm using the Hololive starter because I think that starter is pretty cool, right? So drawing our 5, we don't have much here. We don't have Celtic, we don't have Late. Pretty much we roll everything back except probably for the Aura, because the Aura is really good just to find your Sweet X Sweet if you need units. And Sweet X Sweet, you're able to find units if you don't have them in hand. Alright, so this is pretty good. You have your Search, you have a Late, it's pretty good. Now we just need a Celtic, right? Alright, let's just say we'll go on first. So draw 1. Oh, Valshablon, that's pretty gaming. Yes, we do get an energy crest for all that matters. And then we Soul Blast 1, bottom deck the Voucher Blonde, and then draw 1. Late again, it's alright. Let's just say we take 1, crit to Vanguard, all good. Stand and draw. So here we have double late, double aura. I think aura here is like just okay, right? So we dish the aura, we ride this, then we look at top 7. We didn't get a Celtic, but we got a late. We'll call that, no worries. We'll grab that. Then we use this, Kalos 1 for top 7. Hopefully first, okay, we got a Celtic, which is good. That's what we want. We don't want to commit the Celtic here because the Celtic essentially allows us to fuel for late next turn. If your opponent damage denies, then whatever, like they literally don't do anything. So the good thing is that with Prism, you can just slam down cards and not really care because you essentially have your whole engine anyway. So you have 8, 16, and 18. But I think here, keeping the late is okay. You can actually place this down here and swing for 8 if you want to. But I think if your opponent, you know, hits defensive on this, then it's gonna really suck because you just don't get your aura off. So I think valuing the aura here is pretty good. But then again, you know, if you're super rushy in a deck that doesn't really care, you know, if you're not versing Shiranui, you drop the late, you just bash. If your opponent attacks into each of your regards, cool. You just bounce the late, get your counter charge back, and you call it a day, right? But yeah, let's just say we go 16, and then you draft check 1, cool, aura hits. So here we'll find the Bracing Angel Ladder. So let's just say, you know, we're playing against Shiranui, it's pretty good, grab the Angel Ladder, and then 18, right? Cool. Your opponent's probably going to give you some damage. Actually, let's just say they damage deny, you know, they're attacking to rear, sure, let them have it. Stand and draw. Cool. So because they damage denied, what our, I guess, our goal is to free up the whole board because my opponent's on grade 2 and yeah, like what are they going to do, right? So here, you know, we're going to have like pretty much everything anyways. So I guess we'll dish the late, call this, and then Labrador skill, I call this, and I draw card. Sorry, the right line. So this gains +5 because I have a Labrador Vanguard now. Labrador skill, I can Soul Blast 1 and bounce this. And then she gains +5, and then the late skill, I can counter charge and Soul Charge 1, right? So essentially, the soul in this deck just never runs out, right? So then what you can do is you can play this, and this gains +5. Cool, it's like 13, 15, 18, bounce, and then just call, right? Really, really easy. So battle phase 13, 15, and then you Soul Blast 1, you bounce these two. Labrador skill, combos 1, call this. And if your opponent hits a defensive, calling the late behind is okay, right? Because it makes the column pretty big, right? Let's just say your opponent hits a defensive because they're good at this game, right? So we'll call those two. Because we call, we draw 1. They each gain +5 because of their own skills. We bounce the late, so we already counter charge this turn, but Soul Charging 1 is pretty good. And then yeah, that's pretty much it for Labrador. So we check 1, check 2, and then we attack for 28, and then we Soul Blast 1, bounce these two. So notice how our board's clear, right? So if your opponent rides into Oboro, they can't dominate anything, right? Then the next turn, you go into Angel Ladder, right? So, you know, whatever, your opponent attacks 3 times, cool. Take 1, cool, take 2. Let's just say, you know, guard 15, because your opponent, you know, attacks for like, I don't know, with a Furai or something, right? Stand and draw. We do have Persona Ride, so Persona Ride, draw 1. This is where we use Angel Ladder, so you use Angel Ladder, put into Soul, and draw 1, and then pretty much your whole board gets protection, right? Now the good thing is that here you can just go all out. You don't really care. Your opponent can't dominate you. Like, that actually cannot do anything. So you put this late. Oh, actually we can play this. So Kamos 1, top 7. So for a Prism, that's pretty good. We got a Persona Ride for next turn. Happy days. We don't really want to bounce any of these. Oh, actually maybe we should play that there, right? And then we play the late gains +5. And then the Labrador can Soul Blast this, bounce it, counter charge Soul Charge, play the Celtic, gains 5, play this, and to be honest, I think that's pretty much it, right? Oh yeah, this game's +5 as well. This game's +5 because of my grade 1. And then let's go to battle, right? So this is like, what, 33? This is 38. We saw +1, bounce this. Oh yeah, so after battle, this bounces as well. So then we bounce the late, and then Labrador attacks, come +1, call 2, so we'll call this. Nebarona skill gains +5, but let's finish this skill first because we call, we draw 1. Front row gains +5, this gains a crit. Activating all other skills. If we need the soul, then we can use late. Sometimes we can just control the soul. I think 2 is enough. Nebarona will gain this +5, and then that's pretty much it, right? And then this gains +5 as well, right? So 8, 13, 23, 28. Yeah, that's right. Okay, and then this is 10, 15, persona 25, +5 is, yeah, 30. All right, so checking twice, check 1, check 2, crit 28 is pretty good, like whatever, same number. 28, 40, skill, soul +1, bounce. Because we play Angel Ladder, they can't dominate my Nebarona, and again, another turn where they just attack 3 times. Literally can't do anything. And look at your hand is like 5, 10, 14 cards. What's your opponent gonna do? What are they gonna do? And this is why this deck is the Shiranui Slayer. And yes, that is pretty much it for this comprehensive guide. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, the deck log code is CZPX in the description for you guys as well. Feel free to check it out. Feel free to have a run with this deck. I think this deck is, you know, pretty good. Probably one of the best contenders for Springfest at the moment. We have seen one top in California. So, you know, bound to see more of those coming soon. And yeah, that is pretty much it for this comprehensive guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, pop a like, comment down below what you guys think of Prism. What do you guys think of the meta at the moment for Springfest? I know that come next month is going to be Divines, and it's going to be super duper fun. And you know, where does this deck lay, you know, afterwards once Divines comes out? Who knows, right? Maybe we'll revisit a talk on this a little bit later on. If you guys haven't already, click that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.